In the case of like JÜRI, for example, it's well, he does finish the libretto before he starts composing the music. Actually,
but I believe in collaboration deeply, because if I wouldn't, then there wouldn't have existed neither Hofmannsthal nor Strauss, for instance, and they made it perfectly, at least for me. So it has to be possible. But I understand very well this problem, because I can't also start writing without any text. I have to write some of the text first, and then I can start.
I understand in one way what you're saying, but before I deliver the libretto, I have a long period of contact and discussions. Katarina and I were sitting for weeks and drawing with different colors every part of the opera, with the temperature, the tempo. But then, of course, she's doing the music. Matthias, you never got an answer of the luring tema. Of course, it's more luring for the marketing department on the intendant with the famous title.
Yes, and I also think maybe no, but this is so correct. Maybe when you're writing it, maybe it's the oxen is there in the air. When someone asks me, "Will you write an opera from the Cardell trilogy?" It's there now. It's not something you dig up. That's why you feel it is urgent.
I don't know, it also brings lots of problems. For instance, the first problem is that how you deal with this fact that all the people arrive to the premiere and they have very firm ideas what this should be. And you are going to be, we're going to speak later maybe perhaps about that. Composer is going to be hung up always. So...
Yeah, but the title gives expectations, and you must know about that.
yeah.
And that's not easy when you really are doing this.
And this is, of course, a topic that is very difficult also in terms of turning a literary masterpiece into an opera, or also turning into a libretto, because you have to sort of reduce so much of the written text and quality of the writing.
Yeah, that's the metallurgy part. But again, for instance, Dumas and La Traviata is actually, I think, is a well done libretto. Yes.
Yeah, it's
so
okay.
It is, but you need quite a special skills for that.
Yeah.
But then, as I would say, it's not a matter of making a literary piece into an opera. It's not putting it on stage. It's transformation into a completely different art form with its own rules, and so it's not a question of taking down lots of text and then reduce. It's not a question of reducing the text. It's transforming it into something which is opera.
Great. Next question here.
Yes. Yes. I have a question to you, JÜRI, because I'm very curious to hear about your work with Per Gynt. I mean, Oxenden was first a play, and then it became a novel, and then it became an opera. And Per Gynt first was a play written to be read, not dramatized, and of course must be very interesting to make an opera. So that's my question. I just have a short anecdote, if it's okay, talking about this composer, dramatist, being a good dramatist as a composer. And it's Mozart in a letter to his father. I don't remember which opera he was writing at the time. Maybe it was Don Giovanni, I don't know. But he's criticizing in this letter Shakespeare and talking about Hamlet. And that Shakespeare keeps the father, you know, the ghost, exactly, too long on stage, because the audience get sort of accustomed to him and not afraid enough. And that says quite a lot about Mozart's dramaturgical genius, I think. And he was perhaps 20 or something, and he criticized Shakespeare. But please,
Mozart knows a stage very well. He's very remarkable composer. How to write on stage and what can be done. But I don't know what was your question actually. Yeah, challenge is enormous. That's what I answer. Lots of elephants in the room.
Your approach. Maybe you can tell us about the fact that you've not been to Norway to work on it.
Yes.
To Greenland.
My basic approach, there were two things. First of all, I am not Norwegian, and I wasn't commissioned to write a Norwegian opera out of that. So I have broadened the idea of Norway, which is massive in the first part of the play, to more generic idea of the North and what the North as such is. And then, contrastly to this, the second act deals all about the Mediterranean and so on. And secondly, I took this approach that I don't want to restructure Ibsen. I want to maintain so much Ibsen as possible, but obviously there are going to be some new scenes and even some new characters. But still, the main structure of Ibsen will be there. Part home, then magical world, then Mediterranean, and then returning to homesteads.
Composers that they don't feel equipped of dealing with comedy through their musical language.
I have been actually thinking about that, and my answer always is, where I have landed is very, very difficult to write a comedy so that it remains an opera and doesn't start moving towards somewhere musical land. And I think this is actually the main problem, how to write a comedy so that it really doesn't turn to a musical or some sort of like a fluffy operetta or something. I think this is what we lack kind of skills for.
Yeah. Nej, hon var faktiskt innan. Hon och sen du. Ja. Jag ser alla händer, men ni ser inte de andra.
Yes. Yeah, I have a question. If you get a libretto which is already very hard structured and with a musical thoughts with everything, pause, density, and anything, what do you say about that? Is that inspiring or is it very dull for you as a composer? Yeah.
If it's already this situation, I don't know.
You didn't have? No.
From somebody else. I mean, I haven't had.
No.
But I think anyway, if librettist and composer are separate persons, they have to have an intensive, a more intense dialogue between themselves as lovers, though. Really, otherwise, the remnants of this communication will be visible in the opera. So it's a collaboration if a librettist and a opera composer work together.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And behind her?
Well, I've been here up before. Thank you, JÜRI, for your credos. I like them very much. And I have two questions. And the first is, well, in classical rhetoric and poetry, the drama always starts with an event, questions about why this took place, and the whole story is built on trying to figure out why it happened, the actions going on to this. And I realize that this is not always the case today, but anyway, it's useful. But the other more important question is really the singer. We talk all the time as if singing is not acting, as if singing is apart from acting. And to my understanding, the singer is acting. I mean, he's really doing something physical in order to achieve something. And it seems to me that the librettist, the composer, and the opera singer actually do the same thing, but in 3 different parts. So my question is there another idea of the singer than this acting? Because that's what I hear all the time, that no, they are not acting, they are singing. question.
Yes, for me at least, they are combining those two, of course. When I say it's not acting, this is when I compare it to the physicality of the drama, strictly drama theatre. For instance, I had in Purge lots of those kinds of questions where people had to act very quickly, and they had to move from pushing some people somewhere very quickly to another place, and I really needed to work on that. How far do I go in this drama sort of acting, which on drama stage would be kind of normal, but singers would never manage with this sort of physicality in such a time, because they are giving out so much energy already singing, and they behave differently. They hold their positions very differently to strictly drama. And a composer or a librettist, but a composer most of all has to take this into a very serious consideration when writing an opera. That it's not just putting notes above the text in the text rhythm, but you have to really work on the physicality and the limits of physicality of opera singer.
Mm-hmm. If I may comment on that, that's exactly what I meant by the action or the dramatic action being in the vocal expression, that the acting is actually in the vocal expression, which is the main difference from spoken theatre, as I said. Yeah.
And at the same time, opera has this challenge that you have to keep your actors, singers active. If they are just there standing for 1 hour and have nothing to do, so to say, it's nowadays it wouldn't go really. So. Yeah, I mean, for instance, you can stage Wagner's Tristan and Isolde so that they barely move. But today you have lots to do. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have a question here. Then we have one here, you, and then you. Okay, and then here, and then you. Great.
Hi, I'm Erik Norberg. I'm a playwright and screenwriter and aspiring librettist. Juri, you touched on something that I've been thinking about the whole day. It's the distinction between opera and musical. We haven't been talking about this. This is called opera storming. But the reality is that many of these opera houses are putting on musicals and dramatic different kinds of musical theater. For instance, Värmlandsoperan has bought Shrek, and from Hollywood, from Broadway, and putting it up now. Is this distinction only, is this musical thing? Is it only a necessary evil? Maybe I will ask the theater bosses now also about this. Or could it also be something good, opening up avenues in opera that is more than traditional opera, and going in a broader sense what musical drama can be? Is it, this is like a fine arts thing as opposed to something more popular or such a thing? Just comment on this distinction, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that would be very all right. It's just something I am not very interested in, or even consider that would be something I'd like to do. It's just a personal thing. But if there is a composer who wants to write both operas and musicals, great.
Any more comments? Here we have another question.
I would just like to hear your thoughts on the development on this art form. I don't mean to sound blunt, but my question is: do you see yourself as a part of developing the art form itself? And general thoughts on where is this art form going in the future?
Wow!
Is this to me?
To anyone?
Anyone
yes,
care to jump in?
I really hope so. I love opera. I love music theatre, music drama, to answer your question. And I hope I can give possibilities for composers and librettists that are interested in make pieces to stage them. I think, as far as I can see, it's working on well. At Malmö Opera, we present new pieces almost all the time. We had a composer in residence for 3 years. And even though we don't have a new opening with a brand new piece, we pick pieces that have been played or written in the last 5 or 10 years. So I'm positive.
Yeah. JÜRI, are
Yes,
you
of course,
developing
yes.
this art form?
Yes, hope to do the same thing.
Yeah, I just agree. But I think the focus for me is very much in exploring what can we take from tradition into evolving new opera and sort of take really urgent topics and make them into operas that move us. And I think that there is a development of the art form, a big challenge, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also dare to look into the children's operas, because it's happening a lot. And Carl Håkan, you told me this morning that the magazine for opera said that there will be no new commissioned opera next year in Malmö. We're going to have on main stage opera for families, but it's not counted.
Mm. Yeah, next question here.
Stefan Elias, singer. Hope, quick question. It sounds like topics are usually given to the librettists as opposed to chosen by the librettists themselves. And I think we're talking a lot about finding powerful and relevant present topics. So I'm wondering whether this is limiting to your creative expression and to the power of the operas, or whether it's actually creatively enhancing things to have those limitations.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have actually been in both situations, that I get the topics and that I suggest the topics, and I wouldn't say that it's once you get into working with something, it's not that big of a difference if you initiated the idea or if you got it and made it your own idea, because that's necessary if you're going to work for years with a topic, right? You have to, and also you have to go into something which, you know, where your passion starts. And I've also been in a situation where the idea came from the stage designer. So where the idea comes from is not that crucial, I would say. But you have to find your own motives. Why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm. And of course, if you don't like the topic and the theme, as Kerstin said, you must say no. But it's a question of craftsmanship and collaboration.
Mm-hmm. What do you say about this, JÜRI?
I really don't know. I haven't been in neither of those situations, actually. So.
Oh, okay. Well, we have a question here.
Yes, I'm Jonas Forsell. I'm a composer, and I'm lucky to be the happy one that was the composer in residence for 3 seasons at the Malmö Opera. But before that, I was artistic director at the Nanden Opera in Copenhagen, an experimental scene with only contemporary operas written especially for that scene. But my successor as an artistic director there was Susanne Pierre, who is also a librettist. And she changed a little bit the form of the opera, since she felt as a librettist quite abandoned both by the composers and the opera houses. So she wanted to reshape the process of making operas a little bit. That was her mission, to take that position, so to say. Have you, as a librettist, felt this abandonedness? You know, when you put away something and then when when the curtain raises, you see something quite different from what you delivered once to the composer or to the opera house. Yeah. That was a discussion we had at the Nanden Opera those days.
I think this is something that you guys have to answer, because JÜRI is a freak who does both.
Yes, to be honest, yes. There can be parts taken away. There can be parts mixed together. There can also be, if you don't have the possibility to talk to the staging team, there can actually be misunderstanding misunderstanding of the topic.
Well, the reason for putting up this question is that you said earlier that you often hear that the weak point in modern opera creating are the librettists or the librettos. I don't totally agree. I think really that composers and houses can dishandle even good librettos. Do you have any experience like that, Kerstin?
Well, I was just thinking, because you say when you hand over the libretto and then you sort of feel abandoned and when you see the result. I rarely work that way, I must say, in collaboration with composers, but the collaboration goes on. I mean, it goes on, and I think it has to go on during the composing stage, because so many new needs arise from the libretto when the composer is composing. The symbiosis needed will demand changes of the libretto and then you have exchange of ideas. So actually, in the best of cases, you're part of the composing, and then you, in the best of cases. But there, I think as a librettist, you can be more sort of demanding, and you can demand to be part of the composing process and not leave the composer alone. So it's a matter again of how do you collaborate and how do you find the ways of collaborating.
Mm-hmm. The thing is that I really don't think Mozart and Shakespeare ever sat around and said, what are we going to do with the future of opera and theatre? And I think it's a terrible burden for the people who are actually making the art to feel responsible for correcting this view of opera as elitist or not accessible or not modern. So my question is to the panel, is it helpful to feel constantly under pressure to save opera from itself? I mean, do you not just want to go away and let me get on with it? I'm only responsible for my part of the jigsaw.
JÜRI, would you like to start?
Pressured by what? No, exactly. From the opera production.
From itself.
I can't think like that. I just can't. No. My pressures are, of course, something else, but not with those kinds of pressures. Somehow don't stick to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have written what I've written already. So, yeah.
No, don't mix the opera form with the opera institution, because I think people always would like to tell stories with music and sing. But the opera institutions perhaps have problems that we should try to do something with.
Kerstin?
No, I think I just want to do. I want to save opera back to itself. In that case, I mean to do good work, to do a good opera. That's the only thing I think about when I work on an opera. Not whom to please or whom to save, or does it fit in, or no, I can't really think that way. No.
Mm-hmm. We had a question here from Lily Paasikivi.
Yes, a question soon, but a few points that I would like to make as well is that we've been talking about the craftsmanship and the cooperation of librettists and composers, but I would like to bring in a singer's point of view as well. I think it's essential that the composers also learn to know about vocality, and that it's not only that we say or sing the words in different tones, but I've bumped into these problems very often, that the management of text and the tessitura is not helping us at all. I think the craftsmanship is also very much about learning to know about to whom do you write, to what fach you write, and how much. I mean, I feel very often as a singer that in modern compositions there is too much text. Composers don't allow the voices to cling and sound. We are saying the text to music rather than it should be glorified speech. It should be something else. So I'm really, as a singer, I urge that this would be taken into serious consideration as well, that it's a totally different ball game. There was this gentleman here who was asking about musicals, and I would like to just make a little point about, at least in Finland, we are regularly confronted, our art form and our institution, the National Opera, is confronted with a lot of criticism about our right to exist and our right to collect such a huge lump sum of funding every year, and that only so few people, a selected few, come to our house. We have about 300,000 customers every year, and we haven't done very much musical. In my time, I've been a soloist since '95. We've done one musical, Sweeney Todd, which was quite a success. But I'm seriously considering that doing a musical now and then, where we have invested a common money for this fantastic technology that we have in our house, to treat people to a top-class musical now and then cannot harm this art form. If it lowers the step into some people to come to the house for the first time and experience the National Opera, and maybe it opens a kind of curiosity and lures them back to us later on to see something else, I can't see it as such a red cloth to the high and mighty opera world.
Right. We had a question here. There you go.
My name is Agneta Ehlers-Jarleman, and I'm a writer and director for theatre, film, and one piece for opera. And I don't know if it's out of line, but I would like to comment on some things. We talked about the difference between actor and singer, and when I was directing in the Opera House, I wrote a libretto. It was a play in the Royal Opera here in Stockholm for children. I worked a lot with theatre, with music, and when you write for theatre and have a lot of music songs, you have to use less words. So I was used to that. You have to put much more air in the phrases, a sort of poetry. Otherwise, it will be very clumsy. But when I did my libretto, I never directed in an opera house, and I noticed a very interesting difference compared with when you're working with actors. All the singers asked me, when shall I do this and this? I never read a partiture before. And I didn't know what to say, because when you work with actors, you are talking about the feelings. And so suddenly I found out you can do it on ettan. Can you? Yeah. And then they knew exactly what to do. It was so surprising. So I don't know what.
Okay. Is there a question in there?
No.
No. Okay. Okay. Nice. Can also, go on at the end. Actually, Carl had a question first. He's gotten past it. Got his answer. Here, we have to then take a coffee break.
I just want to clarify to the discussion of musicals here, and we have representatives, so maybe I shouldn't say it, but Göteborg and Karlstad and Malmö, they have in their directive that they also do musicals, because there are not other scenes, other theaters that do it. The Stockholm Opera doesn't have it, because we have private theaters and now also Stadsteatern that do it. Mm-hmm. So that is important in that discussion, not just what people think.
Yeah. Can we stick to the topic of this session? Do you have a specific question for the panel? Yeah.
I might have.
Yeah, please just stay specific on topic.
A lot of talk about craftsmanship, and of course, a composer should really deal with such things. And there's also a lot of talks about collaborations between the librettist and the composer. But the composer composing the music, which is, so to speak, the libretto, way out to the audience and to the drama. I think maybe JÜRI, you were talking about your opera Perch and this deportation scene, which you said it was tonal compared to the other parts of the opera, which is free tonal or atonal. And this is a way of working with the music elements itself to explore, to express something in drama. I think I just want to ask you if when I write opera, being a theater musician in the past, I always see the scenery in front of me when I compose things. I know exactly what time it takes to do things, to react of things from the text. And sometimes you really explore things in the text which is not really there when you read it for the first time, but then you suddenly, of course, in the context, this is a major high point. So my questions to you, do you experience the same thing? And what was the meaning of free tonal and tonal music during the deportation scene?
Yes, quite practical ones. I tend to write so that whilst I'm writing the libretto, I'm already composing the macro level of opera. And with macro level, it means I already settled down all the major happenings, all the how tense is the structure, but I don't go into the detail level at all yet. In case of Purge, we couldn't see it today, but there is this false culmination idea, because there is, before this deportation is actually the rape scene, which we didn't see. And this is again done in quiet. And I build up a kind of like false leads towards the rape scene so that people are expecting that this is going to be in the big scene. And then I had immediately this idea, okay, this is going to be the false culmination, and actually the deportation scene is going to be the major culmination. Then I don't work with leitmotifs. I don't consider it interesting, but there are kind of similar elements to it. And there is this, in Purge, ongoing theme of main heroine Alida's betrayal is associated with B major. And always when there are major tonalities appearing, it has always to do something with the falsiveness or Soviets or brutality of Soviets. And it really links in my mind again together with just Soviet propaganda music. So that was my idea, that I arrive onto the point of B major in a scene which has no words, and which is where just everything what has been done so far is got together. Fantastic thing was that, talking about singers and acting, both Alida started reacting into this B major chord without a stage director at all pointing at this. Both suddenly started making this kind of a grin, this evil grin, right, the B major chord. So they picked it up somehow. I hope it answered to your question.
Yeah. Now we're getting a little bit over to the next session topic, which is do you want to answer this? Something?
No, it's another topic.
We are only taking 2 more questions now. Here is one. He already has the mic, and then there in the back. Okay, and one here, and then we're done.
My name is Petter Ekman. I'm studying composition here at the the Music Academy. And to return to the subject of comedy again, to me the greatest strength of opera is its ability to change the mood in just the blink of an eye. And if you look at all the greatest tragedies in opera literature, they all have some element of comedy in them. So I want to ask you: do you, in your tragedies, do you think about comedy as well and incorporating that into the drama?
I am.
Yeah, JÜRI, maybe. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You need both. You can't cry if you can't laugh, otherwise. And I've done 3 comedies together with Thomas Lindahl. I don't think he's present any longer. And of course, the libretto, the skeleton has to be done first, but not always the song text. As Thomas is a lovely melody maker, I have to put the text afterwards. So in 98% the text is first, but it can be afterwards as well. And it has to be said sometimes in the comedy.
JÜRI?
Yes, no, my answer was yes.
Yes.
I do. Yes.
Yeah. And of course, one thing is contrasting scenes. You always have to have contrasting scenes as well. Well, as in a comedy, you have to have tragic scenes and tragic comic scenes.
Yeah,
it won't work. Yeah, contrast scenes.
Highlight.
Yeah.
Yes, it's both in music and in words and in theatre. It's something which is common. Contrast always highlights something.
Yes. And a question here from the back.
So my name is Isa Schöjer. I'm a playwright. I never wrote a libretto. So I wanted to ask Kerstin, since you said that you think about yourself as a playwright still, what would you say, other than the need for more concentration maybe in the text, what would you say does the text in a libretto have a very different task? Does it have to talk more or less about the emotions, considering that there will be the music also? Yeah. Do you see the different task for the text?
Yes, of course, you have to structure. I mean, once you're going to compose, you're going to transform it into music. So there are needs in the text which has to do with what is the music strong in? What is the music? Where does the music have possibilities to flourish? For example, arias, ensembles, and then of course that is very different from a spoken play where you don't have these moments where time stops in the same way. So the structured organization of the drama, of your drama, will be somewhat different, yes. Excuse me?
Is the task different, she's asking? Do you have the same approach?
Oh yes, I have the same approach. To tell a drama development of characters in a compelling way to get the subject matter through. It's exactly the same as in a play, I would say. Yes.
Do you have something to say about this, JÜRI? No.
Yeah, but you have to keep space for the music, of course.
Okay, we're taking one last question, and then I think we need some coffee.
Hi, I'm Nikola Matusic, singer and leader of Opera Lab here in Sweden. And it's a technical question for you. You might have noticed in movies that actors speak more and more without a vocal core. They talk a bit more like this nowadays, and they use a lot of compression. And I'm wondering if that's affected the way you write for singers today. If you notice that singers also are affected by this kind of vocal culture.
Whoa!
Well,
what a question!
Opera theatre is a very hard place to start whispering or doing those kinds of. At least if I have been using big symphony orchestras, I have to stick to the normal singers.
Yeah, but we can say that the educated opera singers are mostly very good at changing their voices. It's more perhaps if you come in from the musical tradition, you can just sing in one way, but an opera singer or educated singer can use his or her voice in many different ways.
No, but sometimes, for instance, in role design, I think that it seems so that lyrical voices are disappearing from the world. I don't know if you agree, people who really work in this, but lyrical are coming more and more, and dramatic voices are disappearing.
That's more like it.
Yeah, and for instance, it's a high risk nowadays to write, for instance, a demanding dramatic soprano role. And this is where it affects that, okay, you would love to have a splendid dramatic soprano role, for instance, but you think, casting department will have problems. And then you start sort of thinking maybe you could fit to those big amounts of lyric sopranos who are everywhere there, flying above us, so that you could use them more. For something like this, yes.
Okay. I think we should just take a break.